What you are about to see is not fiction. It is the lived accounts of 20 out of 24 refugees who braved the Gulf of Thailand and escaped Vietnam together on a single wooden boat. An impossible mission in which their survival was a fragile balance of grit, sacrifice, and utter sheer luck fighting pirates. Not everyone makes it. Out of respect for some of the horrors that happen in this story, some names and identities remain partially or fully redacted, however age and gender during the incident is shown. This story centers on Thai Van Tran, whose courage and defiance shaped their survival. The story has been pieced together from many voices, men and women scattered across time and location, having their own lives in different other countries now, 45 years after this incident. Despite distance and the passage of years, their recollections remain remarkably consistent. Minor differences have been resolved, and where uncertainty remains, it will be mentioned. 5 years after the fall of Saigon, the war was over. But for civilians trapped under the shadow of the Viet Cong, the struggle for survival had just begun. Among them was Thai Van Tran, who disguised himself as a lumberjack to slip unseen through the crowded rivers of the Mekong Delta. For 2 days he traveled south in the river network, blending into the chaos of trade boats and fishermen until he reached Sa Mau, the southernmost tip of Vietnam. In the pale light of morning, he met up with 24 refugees ready to sneak out, men and women, friends, relatives, colleagues, family, and even 2 toddlers barely 5 years old. Their vessel was a wooden medium-sized riverboat with a roof at the back and 2 long-tail turbine engines for redundancy, highly fragile against the harsh vastness of the sea. When the coast was clear, they snuck to their rendezvous deeper into the ocean. The plan was to cross the sea by dumping their riverboat and boarding a larger, harder ship with stronger engines, meant for vast ocean travel, and to find refuge in Malaysia. Half a day of waiting passed at the meetup point, and the ship never arrived. The sea began to stir, the sun was setting, and suspicion grew. The transport ship was most likely compromised by the Viet Cong, and if they stayed, would get captured having intel on their location. With no other choice, they turned their small boat toward Malaysia and pushed into the wind. By nightfall, the waves were rising. The small boat pressed deeper into the darkness, 24 souls bound together by fear, hope, and fate. They had lost an engine to the harsh waves, but still pushing through. Then a large vessel appeared with the number 565 and a Thailand flag snapping in the wind. Overnight, the wind forced them to drift slightly towards the Gulf of Thailand, and now help seemed to have arrived. The Thailand fisherman crew called, "Come, we will help you. This is no place for a riverboat." Relief washed over the refugees. Rescue had come, and so they thought. As they all climbed aboard, they let down their guard. The mood shifted in an instant. Threatened with hammers and clubs, hope turned to treachery. The 4 to 5 women were dragged away, assaulted, raped, while the men were forced to sit powerlessly outside. Struggles and screams on top of their lungs were heard in the distance for hours as the crew of 20 Thailand fishermen took turns. When the ordeal was over, the women returned. Some returned in tears, others silent and hollow. The refugees were forced back onto their fragile boat without saying anything. That night, they drifted onward in grim, traumatic silence, wondering what dark fate the sea still held for them. You see, the Gulf of Thailand was already infamous. The refugees who survived this trip after called it the Sea of Tears. Here, men were beaten, killed, and cast into the water. Women were seized, carried on to pirate vessels, and imprisoned in floating cages where they were essayed daily, barely kept alive until their captors tired of them and abandoned them at sea, left stranded in the floating cages with no escape until the next visit. The UNHCR estimated about 400,000 Vietnamese were missing or killed in this horrific area alone. This group was lucky, but there was more to come. At dawn, another ship appeared, a fishing vessel, slightly larger than theirs. 6 men aboard shouted something familiar. "Let us help!" This is no place for a riverboat. But the refugees, scarred by the betrayal of the day before, no longer believed in rescue. No help could be trusted now. The refugees refused. The fishermen did not listen. They accelerated closer, cutting off the boat from the right side. No flag, and the serial number scratched out. This could mean one thing. Someone screamed, "Pirates!" 2 men leapt aboard the front. One drove a blade into a refugee's stomach. His scream triggered panic. All passengers in front hurled themselves into the sea, their flight response overwhelming them. At the stern, further from the epicenter of chaos, Thai Van Tran stood firm with a steel sledgehammer in his grip. Beside him, the steerer armed himself with a pole. They knew they couldn't just let them clear and steal the boat with everything on it, or it would be the end for them, so running wasn't an option. The pirates advanced onto the roof. Thai Van Tran threw the sledgehammer, hoping to hit anywhere. The blow crushed one of the pirates' skull, dropping him instantly. Thai Van Tran rushed for another weapon below and grabbed a small hammer, while the other refugee jumped on the roof. The fighting could be heard on top. When Thai headed up, the one pirate was outnumbered 2 to 1, so he faltered and fled while being chased by a third refugee below. Thai jumped on the roof, and he and the steerer hurled the unconscious body off the roof overboard. It was floating face down on the ocean lifelessly. The other pirates on their boat retrieved their lifeless friend back onto their boat. As the boarding pirate completed his retreat, the third refugee, now not needing his weapon, threw it at the pirate who dodged it. Then the Thailand vessel started to reverse. "Get back on the boat," the refugees roared. Seeing the pirates retreat, the survivors rallied back. Morale increased. The refugees cheered and gloated by hurling what they could at the attackers. But they kept reversing, and reversing until their front almost faced the refugee. This could only mean one thing. They were about to ram them. Everyone's faces dropped and could not do anything but watch. The pirate ship accelerated forward, and everyone ran to the opposite side and braced for impact. Fueled by bloodlust from his first kill, Thai Van Tran screamed and was ready to take them down with him. He was preparing to board and fight to the death, and urged everyone to follow. And then... a brutal sideswipe, the pirate steel boat grinding against their wooden hull and tearing the planks apart. Refugees flew, chaos everywhere. The boat began to slowly sink. As the 2 hulls were scraping, the steerer refugee and Thai Van Tran leapt. Fueled by adrenaline, clutching their railing with one hand, hammer in the other, Thai tried to climb onto their boat. The pirates thrust sticks and paddles. Some hit his head, but he mostly blocked them with his hammer and shook their boat to unbalance them. He screamed like a possessed maniac. The pirates hesitated, unnerved by his madness. It wasn't a deep scream, but an ancestral high-pitched scream while going at full force. For a moment, he snapped out of the bloodlust and realized there was no way in. They broke his fingers. His buddy was nowhere in sight, and if he continued, he could get stabbed with a harpoon. So he let go and fell into the sea. As Thai surfaced, the sight was chaos. The refugee boat hung at a sickening angle underwater. Belongings floated everywhere: clothes, baskets, fragments of wood, and all their food supplies. Gone. While people thrashed through the wreckage, calling out names, the smuggler refugee trying to find his children dived to pull another's children from beneath, trapped in the collapsing roof. The terror wasn't over. The pirates headed towards scattered refugees to crash into all of them. But looking up, the pirates could be seen worried and occupied about the well-being of their fellow unconscious pirate, and dared not risk everyone climbing onto and fighting to their death from the madness they saw, so they mocked the refugees with life tubes instead, then retreated to tend to their wounded friend. Against all odds, that previous sledgehammer throw had saved all of them, but now they are lost at sea with no food, no ship, and surrounded by pirates.